Okay, so I'm the CTO of FlexQube and one of the founders, and I will take you through this webinar today. And we have a session of webinars that we will go through during the coming month. And today we will start with the eQart story. So we will talk about why we decided to develop this product. And we will also talk about how we position this on the existing market and which customers we are facing with this product. And tomorrow we will go more into details about the product with more of the hard facts like driving speed, weight, capacity, and so on.
But before you get started, sorry, Pat, I just want to let everyone know that we have everyone muted at the moment. So we will save all of the questions to the end. But if you do have any questions, feel free to write it into the chat or to the Q&A section and we can follow those up at the end.
Yeah, good, Luke. So as Luke said, we will have opportunity for questions in the end of this webinar. So let's get started. So maybe some of you are familiar with the FlexQube concept, but I would like to do a short summary anyway. So what we are specialized in is that we are doing customized industrial carts based on modular building blocks. So as you can see up in the right corner, we have casters, we have beams and tubes, and those can be combined into customized carts. And we are doing this in innovative live configuration tool. So you can connect with one of our designers that actually create the cart in front of your eyes in real time. And we have had a big success with our concept. So far, we have delivered more than 25,000 carts worth more than 250 million Swedish crowns since we started the company in 2010. We have made more than 2,500 unique configurations. And it's very exciting to see that each customer have their own requirements. So no cart are similar to the other. We have so far gained trust among 600 customers globally. And our aim is to make those world leaders in intralogistics. We have sold to 30 countries. And we have also a proven growth, so we are in average growing 45% every year. We have 2 manufacturing facilities, one in Europe, placed in Sweden, and we have one facility in the USA, in Atlanta. And we are a listed company on Nasdaq First North since late 2017. And this is some examples of customized carts. So to the left, you have one cart for a windshield for a bus. And to the right, you have a more kit cart with small parts. This is another example of towing carts customized with size and also a customized top structure. And now we have decided to launch the eQart. And I will give you just a short introduction to that product. So what we are doing with the eQart is that we are entering the automation market. And we are doing this by keeping our modular concept. So we have created what we call the smart building blocks that are 100% compatible with the original FlexQube concept. So we have developed a brain, we have developed motor modules and sensors and so on. And all together, these modules makes the FlexQube carts self-driving. And we are, as always, inspired by Lego. And I think all of you are familiar with the Technics approach. So this is actually very similar to our thinking, that we have a structural building blocks for the mechanics, and then we add power blocks, as in this case Lego is doing. And when you combine this, you can create a lot of fun and creative configurations of Lego. And it's exactly the same thinking that we want to use for the eQart. So we base the eQart on our structural building blocks, and we add the smart building blocks. So in our world, the building blocks are always standardized, but for our customers, the solution can be unique every time. So some background why we decided to develop the eQart. And there are a number of reasons, but the main reason is that we want to support the factory of the future. A factory in principle is a very simple thing. You add parts in one area and out in the other area comes the product. But now we have a lot of trends going on that makes running a factory very complex. So we have, on the one hand, we have the mass customization. And I think all of us can see that in the society around us, that we have more and more products available, and we have more and more variants and options. So yeah, in product offer is exploding. And in addition to that, we have a constant change in the environment and in the world. And yeah, from a factory perspective, that gives a constant change also in the market, and it will affect what you actually need to produce in the factory. And I think this is maybe more obvious than ever, that we can have very rapid change in the surroundings. So the future factory, first of all, needs to be able to produce a lot of different products, and on the other hand, it needs to be very adaptable to adapt to the surroundings. And yeah, due to that there is a lot of products that needs to be produced, there is a lot of activities going on inside a factory. And first of all, you need a lot of parts in order to produce all the different variants of the product. So if you have a car factory, for example, you need a lot of different seats, you need a lot of different steering wheels and options in order to make the car customized. So they are stored in the warehouse because they cannot fit along the assembly line. So to solve that, all the material is prepared in material kits. So you have people preparing a kit of parts that is delivered in sequence to the assembly line just when it's needed for assembly. And this is very challenging for logistics because you need more people to doing those activities. And you also need customized cards in order to present the material in a good way. So when the parts arrives to the assembler, it needs to be presented in an ergonomic way and also a way that the parts are accessible. So there are a lot of things going on in the factory due to the mass customization. And then we also have flexible assembly lines, and flexible line size is very crucial also in order to be able to adapt to changing markets. So if we conclude the top 3 elements when it comes to logistics for the future factory, number 1 enabler is customized cards. Since we have so many different part numbers, it's very crucial to have the ability to customize the cards for different size and different shape. And number 2 is automated logistics, because the frequency of transport is increasing very fast. So you can say that a factory in the past was doing assembly, but the factory in the future is more about moving parts. So that's a very big difference, and then it makes sense to start looking into automation and reduce manual work hours. And the third main element is that all the equipment is reconfigurable. So if you need to implement or introduce new products in the factory, or you have a change, you must be able to change the equipment, maybe in terms of size or top structure and so on. And I found one quote from the CEO of BMW, and he say you will see battery electric right after diesel, right after hybrid on the assembly line. That's the only way we think to respond to the necessary flexibility, because we don't know the demand. And I think this is exactly explaining the factory of the future. So how can we see this change in practice? I searched a little bit for old assembly lines, and I found this one from 1973. So this is an old Volvo plant. And you can see that they are placing the pallets directly on the floor. And they are moving the pallets with a pallet jack. And of course, at this time, the variation in products was very low. So you could deliver a pallet with material and you can use that the whole day, because the cars were almost looking the same and have the same options. And this has totally changed. So what we see is that it's extreme need to actually customize the cards. And we put together some examples here of material presentations that we have done so far. And you can see that it's a very, many different variations of cards. You have a card for seat chassis, you carry motors, you need to handle cardboard boxes and so on. So each material presentation is unique for a specific use case and product. So this is a big change going on, and this will be even more extreme in the future, that it will be a need for more customization. And this is, of course, because of the products that our customers produce. They are very different in size, they're very different in function, and they're also very different in terms of volume. So some products have a low volume and some products are produced at very high volumes. And if you also consider the mix and the variation of the variants offered for each product, it gets very, very complex. But what is interesting to see is that regardless of the product, we see the same trend, that the complexity is really increasing in terms of handling different parts. So if we go back to flexibility and the cards, what type of flexibility does our customers need? And we see two main flexibility needs. The first axle is size. So some customers are enough, they are happy with some standard size like Euro pallet, US pallet, and some standard box sizes. Other customers might need a customized size. It doesn't mean that the card needs to be big, it just means that the card needs a size that is not available as standard. And on the other axle, we have a type of top structure. Some customers and use cases are fine with a very generic top structure like flat deck or rollers, while other customers need very customized top structure because they have complex parts. And on the right side, we can see different customer categories that we work with. So we have the distribution centers, we have the warehouse, we have the tier 1 suppliers, and finally the OEM manufacturers. So if we should try to place those on this chart here, I think we can conclude that the distribution centers, they have the least need for flexibility when it comes to industrial cards. And that's because they are handling a lot of standard packaging like pallets, boxes, and so on that fits very well within standard sizes. And they also have a very generic need when it comes to top structure. If we then look at the warehouse, they also need very generic and standardized top structure, but we see that warehouse might need more flexibility when it comes to size. So maybe they need bigger pallet cards to move those around. So we see increased need for size flexibility. Then we have the tier 1 suppliers, and now we are starting to assemble products, and of course then the complexity is increasing. So that means that the need for customized top structures are increasing when you look at tier 1 suppliers. And finally, the ones with the most complexity is the OEM manufacturers, and it's pretty logic because they have the biggest products, they have the most variation, and they are doing kind of the final product that are delivered to the customer. So they have a very big variation in size and shape of the products. And during the assembly, they also need the parts to be presented in ergonomic and good way for the assemblers. So this is a map showing the need of flexible cards based on our different customers. And if we then go over to the automation market, which is the second element for a future factory, that is a very fast growing market. And that is of course related to what we have looked at, that the activities within logistics is increasing very fast. When you start to deliver material in sequence to each car, for example, there will be almost non-stopping movements. Everything will in some way be moving around in the factory. And that is the reason why a lot of companies are looking into automation to replace manual operations with robots. And there is also in some areas issues to find labor, and that is one other reason to look into automation. And it's interesting to see this growth, and it opens up for new players to enter the automation market, because this market will be huge and there is a need for different type of automation solutions when it comes to logistics. This is the major kind of groups of players when it comes to factory and warehouse logistics today. We have the first one, which is material handling providers. So that is basically that you take a standard forklift and you add some self-driving capabilities to that by adding sensors and intelligence to navigate. And the second category is the AGV and AGC companies. And they have been in the market for a long time. So that is small motorized AGVs driving under carts. And then we have the third player, which is kind of the flagship within the automation in terms of intelligence. It's the AMR, it stands for Autonomous Mobile Robots. They are focusing on very high performance, but they are also looking into moving standardized emballage. So this is from a customer view, if you go out and look for automation, this is the three main categories that you will find. So what we are offering here is something that we call motorized carts, and long term we believe or really think that this will create an own market segment, because based on the increased frequency of movements and the increased need for flexibility, we see that there is a market gap when it comes to automation to solve these problems. I will come back to that a little bit later. This is also interesting. It's a chart showing the price of labor in relation to price for robots and automation components in general. So we can see that the labor costs are increasing pretty fast, and on the other hand, the robot price are decreasing. And of course, the bigger gap between labor cost and robot price, the easier it will be to actually gain a return on the investment in automation. And I think this is also one of the reasons that we actually see that this market is growing so fast. I just took some examples on the right side there with laser scanners and battery, which is some main enablers for the products that we see on the logistics market today, but they are dropping really fast in price as well, enabling a lot of good automation solutions. So what is unique with the eQart and why does it deserve its own market segment? And that we are explaining here. So as you saw on the previous slides, most of the solutions that exist have a separate, we can say that the motors or the drive units are separated from the cart. So either you drive under and pick up the cart or you lift up the cart. Our belief is that if we look at the factory of the future, everything will be in constant move. And if that becomes true, it really doesn't make sense to separate the drive unit and the cart. And since we also are a cart manufacturer, this is a logic step for us to make a segment called motorized carts, where we actually add motors and such things directly to our carts. There is some benefits doing this. You don't have the integration that you need to look into between the cart and AGV. We have experienced some challenges doing that. There is also ergonomic challenges that when you have AGVs driving under carts, they need to be raised, and that can cause some ergonomic problems, for example. There is also some safety concerns when you drive under carts, because it might create some black areas for the safety sensors. You can always see in front, but you will have restricted view of the safety on the sides, for example, which is a benefit with the motorized carts, because in that case, you will always have a 360-degree field of the safety. And also, last, if we go back to the slide with the pricing, our belief is that the cost of automation components will decrease very fast when the volumes goes up, which is also argument to actually motorize all the carts. So we believe that there will be a big market for this type of use case where you have very frequent movements. In that case, it doesn't make sense to have cart and motor separated. I want to show this as well because it shows a principal difference between the concepts. So if you split the motors and the carts, you always have a planning aspect. You need to know when you need the automation, and you need also to accept some waiting time. So that approach is very similar to getting a taxi. With the eQart, it's more that you always have the motors on board, which enables that you can have an instant drive, and it's more independent solution. Okay, we go on here. So does the automation players fulfill different customer needs? Yes, they do, very different. And I added this slide just to remind that there is no product that is best in doing everything. That product doesn't exist, but all products are best at something. And I think this is very important to remember when you look at automation for a factory. It's very dangerous if you start to look for solutions that should solve all the problems. The future factory will need a lot of different automation to solve the problems in the most efficient way. So it's all about the user case. There is different solutions for different user case. I think what is dangerous is if you look at one solution and try to implement that all over a factory or a distribution center. And it's also not about good and bad. So what I'm going to present now is just where products are most feasible. And we are going back to this 4-square matrix. We have the size on one axis, and we have the level of customized top structure on the other axis. And to the right, we have the players. We have the AGVs, we have the autonomous robots, we have the material handling providers, and we have the eQart. And if we start with the AMRs, they have a clear position in the lower left corner. They are mainly designed to, in a really good way, move standard parts like pallets, containers. They are available in a few standard sizes, aiming for those standard packages. And there is also not that huge need for customized top structures when you move those standard packages around. It's the same with the material handling providers. I mean, they are traditionally moving simply pallets, so they are also belonging to this square of standardized top structures and standardized size. And then we have the AGVs. They are mostly working in, or they are always working together with some kind of cart, because the AGV itself is useless. You don't place anything directly on these products, so it's always combined with some type of cart. So that gets into the upper left corner, where we have that it's feasible to move standard size packaging, but maybe with a customized top structure. And then finally, as you can see here, this is the market gap that we see, and it's a market gap that we want to close with the eQart, and it's all about flexibility. So if a customer asks for a customized size and a customized top structure, there is not many solutions out there on the market today. So that is the market gap that we want to close with the eQart. It doesn't say that we cannot do any of the other squares, but it's a clear message that this is something that we can do really, really good. And this slide is a bit messy, but I overlapped the customers into this matrix. So by looking at this, you can see that the autonomous mobile robots and the material handling providers, of course, they have a very good product offer for distribution centers. That's very logic, and that's what it's designed for. If we look at the AGV and the ABC and the ability to handle customized carts in a more standardized size, they are opportunity or product feasible for maybe tier 1 suppliers. And if we look at the eQart, we can see that we are overlapping the OEM manufacturers, and that is the customer that has the most need for flexibility in size and also shape of the cart. So this is a very focused customer for us, together with tier 1 suppliers and also warehouses, because we see a need from warehouses that they need very big carts, for example, and then we can offer something that the others cannot do. So now you understand the customers and the market, and I will quickly go through our mindset when we developed the eQart, because we have done some considerations during the development phase. And we call those development guiding principles. And it's about extremes here. So if we start from the left, from fixed to modular, we are 100% focused on modular solutions, because that first of all, it gives us a flexibility to create what the customer needs, but it also gives us a flexibility in the future to actually add new models to make the eQart even smarter. So for us, it's not a completely new product. We just replace or exchange certain modules, and we can achieve new feature of the product. The next one is ROI, return of invest, and there we have technology versus value. There is examples of products where you go all in on technology. You just add everything, most fancy thing that is available, but you forget about the real value for the customer. And what we said in the eQart development is that, okay, we want to focus on the customer value. How can we move something from A to B in the most efficient way instead of starting out with the technology? Then we have integration, and the extremes are system versus independent. And we have a focus there to be independent because we want to have a very easy implementation. There should not be any need to integrate with some Wi-Fi or some fleet manager or some other systems. We really want this to be out of the box solution. If we look at use cases, there is two types of use cases. There is a general use case if you use automation robot to solve a lot of different problems in the factory or serving several processes. But we have said that we want to focus on dedicated use case because we can make eQart in a specific size and shape. Then it really makes sense that that is serving a dedicated use case. And by doing that, it's also easier to get a quick return on invest because you only have one case and it's very clear how to communicate or how to calculate. Then it comes to decision. Since we are a cart company, we have been involved in a lot of AGV projects. And we see very clear that these projects tend to just get stuck in investigation because the projects are growing and growing. It's about integration. They want AGV or robot to function in a lot of different processes and so on. So what we have as a goal is to really focus on implementation. We want companies to lower the level to implement automation. Implement instead of investigate. That is very important. When it comes to implementation, we want the dummies to be able to do the implementation. There should not be any expert knowledge needed or a lot of consultancy hours in order to get up and running. And finally, the automation level. We are doing automated product, but we have also taken an active decision that in order to achieve a good flexibility, we don't want to go for 100% automation level. We still want to involve some human operations. We think that is the best way to go if you want to have a robust automation system. And it's also a good way to have acceptance among the operators that they feel that they can they can maneuver and control the eQarts and they can actually take these decisions themselves when the transport should be launched and so on. Yeah, so based on this, the result or the outcome is these modules. And as I said in the beginning, it's a unique concept. It's 100% standardized. So regardless of the eQart you want to customize, these modules are always the same. So if you schedule a meeting with us to configure eQart in some hours, based on these building blocks, we can have a customized solution. And we have the goal, or we know that we can offer a market-leading flexibility, both in terms of size The smallest one is 900 millimeters roughly, and we can go all the way up to 2.5 meters. Then we have also from a use flexibility perspective, we can make standalones. In some cases, we can also do towing and mother-daughter solutions. And we will talk more about those use cases in detail in coming webinars. I will not go too much into this right now. And when it comes to top structure flexibility, one very important requirement when we developed the eQart was that it should not have any restrictions when it comes to the top structure flexibility. So it has exactly the same opportunities as a regular FlexQube cart to add different top structures onto it. We are getting closer to the end, so I just want to show some different examples of eQarts. So this is a customized eQart for machine parts. It's one of the smallest configurations that you can do, and you have a custom top structure in ergonomic height to load these machine parts going from one station to another. So this is what I talked about, a very dedicated use case focusing on this part going from one place to another. That makes it a lot easier instead of having this automation equipment focusing on doing a lot of other things as well. So this is a very clear use case. Here you can see the size variation from the smallest one up to the largest one. And as I said, from a module perspective, it's exactly the same configurations. We only have built a different base. This is eQart with the top structure of shelves. So this is good for picking operations. This is showing the user interface, which I talked about. So you have clear view of the map and the stations, and the operator can easily decide where he wants the eQart to go. And this is also something that we really will focus on in the future to get the user interface really, really nice. So that was all for this webinar. A little bit about reasons behind the eQart, our customers, and the market. Already tomorrow, there will be a webinar that we will pre-record, but it will be launched during the day tomorrow with a little bit more detailed information about the modules, some technical specifications like speed and payload and so on, navigation and safety technology. And after that, we will also dig in more into user cases, ROI, and talk more in detail about what we will also offer in the future.
The webinar, it's good to clear up that the webinar tomorrow will just be a link sent out to everyone that has participated today. So you don't actually have to set time aside. You will receive a link for you to watch.
Yeah. Good. So we are here if there are any questions related to this webinar or the eQart or just in general.
Feel free to write any questions in the chat or the Q&A. We have one question here, Pab, from Christina. She's asking if you showcase the eQart somewhere and what is the approximated cost?
Yeah, we are showcasing eQart, so we have demo units in both the USA, Mexico, and Europe, and the cost starts at $25,000 US.
Do we have any other questions from anyone? Any of our attendees? From Shane, we have, does the eQart payload increase with its size?
No, it works like this, that we have certified the concept of the building blocks, and there is one fixed weight for all the size configurations. So that the size limit is 1,000 kilogram regardless of the size. But from case to case, we need to, of course, evaluate if there is feasible to have 1,000 kilograms on the cart. So if we make a small one, I think in most cases it will carry less load. But that is a risk analysis that is done from case to case when we configure the eQart.
Okay. From Andrew, we have, who do you see as our largest competitor, and currently who is our largest customer?
Yeah, I think the largest customers are the ones with the most complexity. And of course, that is the final manufacturers, but we also see that there is a big interest from warehouse and distribution centers when it comes to maybe more odd size carts, and also towing, where we have a strong offer, where we can tow other carts already existing.
Andrew also followed that one up with, is the trend more likely to be leasing or purchasing the eQart, and how do you handle automation upgrades?
Yeah, we offer both payment options. So there can be leasing on a monthly basis, including software updates and maintenance and service and so on. And there is one option to just buy it as a regular product with more responsibility for doing maintenance and so on.
Kirsten here is asking if there's any plans to increase the towing capacity of the eQarts by using stronger motors.
Not at the moment. We see the towing capacity right now to be enough in relation to the customers we are targeting. But we are always open for improvements or more capacity in the future, but not right now.
We have another question here, if we need a specific type of tape for the eQart.
No, we don't need a specific tape. It's just based on color, and questions like this will be answered by Joar tomorrow more in detail in that webinar when it comes to product features.
Okay. Is there any other follow-up questions from any of the participants today? Yeah, I have another one from Shane here. Does the payload remain the same with the top roller attachment?
Yeah, the payload is the same, but if we add rollers, we need to review the point of gravity. So, I mean, if we make the cart really high, that is something that we need to consider when we set the payload. But if there is, let's say, I mean, if there is rollers in a normal height, the weight rating will not change.
And can you tow your existing carts with the eQart, even if they are not FlexQube carts?
Yes, you can do that. You need a tow bar on the carts and fixed casters, then they can be towed. And we can also offer mother-daughter concepts, which we will go through also in later webinars. But that, I think, is the best option to move around existing carts. If you have carts that you want to move automatic, then there is a good option to look at mother eQarts.
Okay, no more follow-up questions. If you do have further questions that you think of after the conclusion of this webinar, you can always email us at eqart@flexqube.com, both with the Q, so eqart@flexqube.com, FLEXQUBE. You don't have any other further comments, do you, Pat?
No, stay tuned. So we will upload the webinar for tomorrow, and then we will come back with more live sessions going forward, and we will get more and more detail into use cases and so on.
Sounds great. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for listening.